Mr. Vogt, do we want to kick this off at 6?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll let you know when we're live.
No.
Jim, are all the administrators on?
Board.
Well,
just like yours.
Mr. Becker and Mr. Vogt, we are now live.
All right, good evening, everybody. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Can we have a roll call, please?
Cindy Brassington. Present. Drew Hampton.
Here.
Josh Hoagland.
Here.
Greg Klebon.
Here.
Brianna Majeski. Present. Josh Majeski.
Here.
Tony Serafini.
Here.
Tim Vogt.
Here.
Eli Emza.
Here.
9 members present.
All right, at this time, we have the agenda hearing period. It's time to permit residents in the audience to make statements to the board of directors on action items. Are there any comments at this time?
Here's one comment, but
I think we should do the superintendent's report first so that
Okay.
people have a chance to comment.
that's fine because it all goes together. That'd be great. Okay, again, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Quick look at our county numbers. Our COVID numbers this coming week. Now, they haven't been officially released, but they look like in Columbia County remain moderate. Northumberland County will remain substantial. Our local numbers, which are zip code numbers, have remained pretty low. There has been a little bit of an increase by 1 or 2 each zip code, but overall our zip code numbers are very low. We did have our first case within the district. Feel it's an isolated case. Appears not to be contracted within the district. The recommendation is to stay full in person. Again, we are going to be monitoring numbers, and I would like to stay full in person as long as we can. For instance, if a second case came in the elementary building, we would be recommended to go full virtual for 5 to 7 days. So at this time, again, I would like to remain at full in-person learning model. With saying that, I had the opportunity to sit down and meet with a number of teachers, and I did meet with the teacher leader groups, which consisted of team leaders and department heads. The overwhelming issue that teachers had would be lack of time. Time for planning, time for organizing, and time for structuring their day. Teachers did lose a common planning time. Every day they were expected to be in the building by 7:35, and students were released to their classrooms at 8:05. We were able to stage students in cafeterias and large group areas. Because of the COVID, we were unable to stage those students in those locations. We're trying to keep crowds down to a minimum. So they did lose that time, which is approximately half hour every day. Some of their issues are planning for each lesson takes much more time as you're planning for virtual and in person. So what you're doing is planning for almost 2 lessons or multiple lessons at one time. Teachers, I talked to elementary teachers about making one teacher a virtual teacher. There wasn't a consensus on that. It was kind of split. It was three grades to 2 not to do this. Some of the reasonings for not to do this is teachers already know their students, students already know their teachers, parents know their teachers, teachers are aware of student needs, and any social, emotional, or academic needs so far. And then all teachers, if we did this, all teachers in the grade level, and we're mainly talking about elementary here where seems to be an issue, would have to stay at the same spot. Now, teachers are very similar in what they do across the grade level, but they're not exact. If we had to do one teacher virtual in each grade level, there would be a lot of people in and out. When I say a lot of people, students could be in and out depending on illnesses, depending on if they had to be quarantined. Students could be in and out of the school or in and out of the classroom, in and out of the virtual lessons. So they could pop from the virtual teacher back to the regular teacher when they came back full. So there were some reasons why not to. The reasons why to would be definitely it would save them, the teachers, some time planning a full virtual lesson. Attached to our board agenda under policy and programs, I was able to work with the administration. We put some options together, which would consist of a calendar revision. The first option, option A, would be an early dismissal on Fridays, starting this Friday. Again, anything we talk about, we can make revisions to. It doesn't have to be exactly what this is. We can make those revisions, agree to it, and then make the revisions and post them online. So they would have what an after school, an early dismissal on Fridays would do. We would end the day at 2:50. Students will be dismissed, and teachers would have approximately 2 hours and 15 minutes at the end of the day on Friday to get some planning. Now, it's not a huge amount of time, but it is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Meeting with some of the teachers, they would be thankful for any time. In fact, most of them said that, be thankful for any time. The second option, option B, would be a 2-hour delay schedule, 2-hour delay on Mondays. You can see that's highlighted by the red triangles. That would give the teachers some planning times Monday mornings to, again, plan for the week. We would run a 2-hour delay schedule and give teachers, again, some planning time for the rest of the week. We're able to do this by changing some things in our schedule. We have to be cognizant of not only having 180 days of instruction, but also meeting our required 900 hours in the elementary school or 990 hours in grades 7 through 12. So with having some Act 80 days already in the schedule, we're able to tweak some things in the schedule to give us time to do these 2-hour delays or the 2-hour early dismissal. The third option we put in there, and this was a request from teachers, because teachers would like to have the virtual days, as we had 2 during the hybrid and we had 1 this past Friday. Where we have this on the schedule, they would be virtual days just like we've done during those Wednesdays during the hybrid sessions, and then this past Friday. They would be virtual days up until the holiday season in December. And again, there would be instruction. It would be synchronous and then asynchronous. Time for teachers between sessions and then also towards the end of the day. There are some issues with this type of option. The positives, it gives teachers time, and there is still some learning. Some of the issues would be with some special needs students, there would have to be some compensatory services given for those days that are missing, and it would have to be for early dismissals or 2-hour delays, but there's not a whole lot of time that they're missing from the school day. Those services can be made up on that day. Another thing is the transportation. If we took those days, there'd be 10 days, we'd have to start thinking about possibly talking to Fullington about some transportation. We're already We've done 3 hybrid days. We're doing 2 Act 80 days in November. So right now we're at 5 for the 175 possible low option. So another 10 days here, we'd have to look at possible talking with Fullington regarding transportation. So that's another issue. And all those issues can be addressed or taken care of. And I know board members and myself have received emails, parents talking, parents want their kids in school. They've come out to send us emails. They've talked to me out in the parking lot as late as today. They want to see their kids in school. Again, you weigh everything and try to make good decisions. I do feel that we need to give teachers some time. What they're doing now is so much different than what they've done in the past. Everything has to be redone, restructured, reformatted, and all that takes time. We did take a big chunk of their time away, that 7:35 to 8:05. So I do know that time that was taken away. I was out in the buildings early in the morning, and pretty much from 7:35, kids start trickling in. The majority of our kids come in at 7:45 when the buses come in. We're looking at, we're doing a study of those early arrivals in the elementary school and seeing what time the bulk of them come in. Right now, we're looking at by 7:45, I have like between 30 and 35 kids arriving, and we should be able to stage that number of kids in the cafeteria to give teachers a couple extra minutes in the morning. So we're doing that study right now to try to solidify what that can be. So we're looking at all kinds of angles to try to provide the time that they're missing. So that's kind of my presentation. We can open it up to comment or discussion.
I have one question. What's the percentage of virtual students today or last week? Do we have that?
I don't have that. I know our attendance has been strong. I don't have those numbers for you, Tim, right now. Possibly look at that. Our attendance overall has been strong. I don't know what it was last week to give you a positive number. I know we've been in the 80s across the district, K through 12. Of kids that could be here, versus, not being here.
Mr. Becker, when you had a chance to meet with the teacher leaders, was that today or was that before some of these other options came out?
No, I met with teacher leaders last week.
Okay. Were they aware at that time of the 2-hour delay? And
yep, I told everybody these were options. I said I will talk to them.
As per that letter, came after those options were presented to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Then again, I met with team leaders and department heads, not everybody on the faculty.
Are you going to read that letter?
Okay, yes, I did. We did receive a letter from the staff today in the elementary, from the elementary school. It says, "Dear Southern Columbia School Board members, while we understand that individuals and small groups of teachers have contacted you about our concerns, we thought that you should know that these issues are shared by a large majority of elementary teachers. We feel it is vital that we can share our needs in order to continue to produce a solid educational program while meeting the needs of both our SoCo Live students and those students who regularly attend school. Although we are appreciative of your suggestions or suggested ideas and solutions to our plight, our needs go beyond getting printing help and GoFundMe requests. In this unusual time in education, teachers need more time to implement, restructure, design, create, organize, and present lessons to our students. From the beginning of the school year, our planning and collaboration time was lessened. Our student day begins at 7:35. and consists of teaching our students, maintaining the cleanliness of our classroom throughout the day, answering many parent emails, monitoring the COVID-19 guidelines for the health and safety of the students, and constantly troubleshooting and adapting our lessons on the spot due to technical and other issues. While it is known that we have always worked well beyond our contracted hours to meet the needs of our students, this year we are finding that the hours we are investing are not maintainable. We are spending countless hours on weekends before and after school, leaving us feeling overwhelmed and depleted. As professionals, we are confident that you care about our physical and emotional health. At this time, we were requesting one virtual day per week in order to meet the overall needs of our students. As they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. We appreciate your time and consideration on this matter. Sincerely, the elementary teachers.
I just think that we have 80% of our students in the classroom, 20% out. I think the option where we choose a virtual teacher makes more sense than limiting the 80% of the kids. Now we're going to send them home early, or we're going to give them a whole day off. I just think we would be better off if the administration put a plan together to take care of that 20% by assigning one teacher to that job. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think.
Only thing with that, Tim, is that you limit those students. If they come back, then that one teacher has to do exactly what all the teachers are doing, half virtual, half not. So if in January, some of these kids that are virtual end up coming back, which we've given them the option of doing at this point in time, if we leave these kids come back at that point in time, then you have that teacher having virtual and in school.
And also cross that bridge in January. We're talking about tomorrow.
The other thing is, let's just say numbers increase drastically within the next month, and all of the students are then flipping into that kind of hybrid virtual, then we're going to be kind of in the same boat again.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance we end up hybrid again here.
I think we would be naive to think that it wouldn't come up at some point.
Or full virtual even.
But at that point, we got to give them the time. But if we're keeping if we're staying in school, I think we owe it to the kids that are in school to get 5 days of education.
We also had multiple parents make decisions based on being able to stick with their teacher. So, a lot of people chose SoCo Live either for full virtual or part-time of the week based on I can still have the teacher that my kid was supposed to have.
And along those lines, like Mr. Becker was saying, we have some teachers that are teaching, they all get taught the same thing, but they're at different times. Or they're different methods, or they're a little ahead or behind or whichever. They also have to deal with as well. I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying that these are things to take in consideration if you're looking at doing that.
I just think taking care of the bulk of the kids is the most important thing.
So then if put this in there. So if by happen chance a child is exposed and has to quarantine but is not sick, has to go virtual, then does that child then get put into that classroom at that point in time?
How else would you do it?
Well, I'm just asking. So then after that kid comes back, does he or she go back to their normal classroom?
Yeah.
I just think we're too far invested in the current plan to stop everything, break a bunch of promises that we made people at the beginning of the year, and then relaunch everything and uproot a bunch of children who've already bonded with their teacher and their classmates mid-year. If it were something that were put out before school started, I think that would be a viable option. But at this current place in time where we're at, I just don't see how logistically you can make it work.
So, Matt, not willing to write the idea off at this point, but I do have some other questions before we get too far discussing the different options. Did any of the teachers have concerns about that overcrowding their room?
We talked about the pros and cons of, having that virtual teacher. They know that some classrooms, that the in-person classrooms might get a little larger. Because when we say 80%, it was like 83, 85, so it's not, 20 if you have a class of 100. So yeah, there will be, the in-person classrooms would probably be larger.
But was that
Again, that could, not in all rooms, that could.
I mean, by the teachers, was that a concern they brought up?
No, not a huge concern.
Is Mr. Davis available on this call?
Brian, are you available?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, go ahead.
Brian, have we had bandwidth issues going out of the school?
Knock on wood, Mr. Hoagland, I feel pretty confident where we are wirelessly going out. The most of our problems seem to be, unfortunately, coming in from at home. For example, I know some of the hotspots that we've handed out, we've seemed to find, like, some of the cloudy days, we have poor connections. Or if we have a household that has 4 kids on one hotspot, that seems to be a little bit tough. We've tried to tweak some things in Teams, like telling kids to kind of put a spotlight on their teacher and kind of pin their teacher or mute their video. But I think I feel very confident saying that the bandwidth going out has been pretty good. Are there a few areas in the district K-12 that I'd like to see a little bit better? Yes, but when we look at the reports and we can kind of monitor the call quality reports, it seems like our teachers' call quality is pretty good going out. I mean, there's just so many variables that at the home side that we've run into. I've spent a lot of time talking to grandpas and grandmas on the phone, troubleshooting wireless issues. So what I've seen on my side as far as troubleshooting is mainly at home. Sorry, I was muted. I was muted when I was trying to talk.
That's fine. So, Jim, out of the last 6 weeks, of course, this is week 7, 5 out of those 6 weeks, we did not have a full week in school. So my concern is we're discussing something that looks basically like the last 5 out of 6 weeks, but it seems like the last 5 out of 6 aren't cutting it now. So I'm not sure why this is going to make that better.
I think in my discussions with the teachers, they were all appreciative of those days. After that first hybrid day, Wednesday, they were all thankful, expressing their, walking through the halls, checking to see what's happening. They were thankful for having that day to plan, organize, meet as a team. And again, during those times, there was virtual learning going on. Was it exactly as it would be in person? No, I don't think so. But I think it was fairly strong. And again, they were very thankful. I had a couple teachers just this afternoon come over, and these were for high school teachers, not part of that leadership group. Again, thankful for those virtual days, saying, hey, we need these virtual days.
So do you think that the gist of the letter was more a request to keep that going as opposed to saying, hey, things are not working, we need more time?
I think the gist is they would like to keep the virtual days.
And what's the administration's recommendation?
I'm torn. My goal is to get everybody here every day. I know I talked to the other administrators and we all kind of feel the same way. We also talk to the teachers and we see that they are worn down, perplexed, as I think in every profession is. There has been a big change for teachers and how they are doing their jobs. there is a big time period that was taken from them in the mornings, which they used for, meeting with teams, meeting with parents, planning, meeting with student support teams. So all that stuff was pretty much taken away. That time was taken away. We still do some meetings. We do some IEP meetings and different times where we get coverage, but that's the reason why we put that time in there in the beginning of the day was for those things. So that time in a meeting in the morning, although, justified taking it away, it's really missed. So.
That was about a half hour every day.
About a half hour every day.
And the early dismissal would give us 2 hours, so that'd take care of 4 days worth of that
Yes.
half hour.
Is the intention, say we have to go hybrid the week of 10/26 or 11/2, is the intention then that, and hypothetically we agree to one of these three options, those options go away during the hybrid week and the only missed instructional time is virtual Wednesday?
Right. Well, and I think if we go hybrid or full virtual, that would trump whatever schedule we have. So I think if we do something, say if we do full virtual days on Friday, well, if we go hybrid, well, that virtual day is going to get moved to Wednesday. If we go all virtual, then we're all virtual. So I think if we approve a calendar, approve something, we have to be flexible enough to make changes, depending on what learning model needs to happen.
Is Mr. Fetterman on here?
Mr. Fetterman, are you on?
I am on, yes.
I had a parent approach me who teaches in another district and wanted to understand why we were considering these additional planning days. And she asked me some questions that I really didn't have answers to, and you may have answers to them. Just asking what the current planning strategy is, especially where we have, team-based instruction in the elementary school where there's multiple teachers teaching the same things. Is everybody reinventing the wheel for themselves, or are they saying, hey, teacher 1, you take week 1 of October, teacher 2, you take week 2, and then we make our own little modifications for the way we usually do things? Or is everybody just spending all of their planning time together, trying to go day by day?
They're trying to work together. We've got some very, very good teams at each grade level, as you know. The goal is, it was disappointing when we lost that 7:35 to 8:05, which we totally understand because of the number of children we have coming in and we can't house them. But that was a vital time each day for the teams to meet together, talk about language arts. We had days we spent time on math, science. So each of the subject areas in 2, we would get together as teams to discuss the subject areas, discuss the children in the classroom, bounce ideas off each other. So it was a very team and very collaborative time that was lost. So I don't think that finding time, I guess, common time right now is difficult. So they are still trying to meet at times during specials when they all have specials together. But they're looking for time, I guess, to spend together to make the best instruction possible when they're old. Just so the common planning time was huge. So now they're not Lone Rangering it, but they are trying to find time together to collaborate.
And the kids are moving for unified arts just in the last week or two.
Yes.
Have you heard any responses from that?
Positive. Thankful and positive.
So if we were able to recover most of that half hour every morning, would that be sufficient? I'm not saying that we can figure that out. I'm just asking you, would that be sufficient planning time if they were able to recapture that morning time?
I do think, in talking with the teachers and beyond the leadership group, they'd be thankful for anything, and appreciative, and it would definitely benefit. They were asking for that full virtual day because that would be a little more when you're teaching online. You have a little bit of time between lessons that you could probably get some things done. So it would be a little extra time on those virtual days. But I know they'd be appreciative and they would use any time we give them.
Is there some way we can free up that time in the morning?
Well, like,
I know you
we
mentioned.
talked about it. We could probably stage kids in the cafeterias probably till about 7:45. As soon as we have the buses unload and start coming in, then the crowd becomes too large and we have to disperse them. So we can get a couple minutes in the morning.
What if we split them up further? So we have the large group area in the cafeteria. We could probably stage all of kindergarten in the large group area if they were in separate corners by class and then not sitting shoulder to shoulder.
Is there a way we can split them up even by their unified arts classes? If they're all separate then, and the teachers are free then, you know what I mean? Like if there's enough space for all the kids to go somewhere for a unified arts, whether it's gym or music
That's
or
one
something.
grade level,
They're not all active.
Oh,
not
that's one.
5 grade levels. Yeah.
I was just thinking if you put kindergarten in the large group area and first and second in the cafeteria, maybe third goes somewhere, maybe they don't. But I'm assuming that the fourth graders aren't as big a distraction to the teachers as having a room full of kindergartners bouncing off the wall first thing in the morning.
That's probably true.
And then keep them till 8:05, like they used to.
So not to derail from that, who needs to be in a classroom with a classroom full of kindergartners, first graders, or second graders? Does it have to be a teacher, or who is allowed to be in there by themselves to monitor the class? What is the requirement?
Any school employee.
Has to be a school employee though, not like a volunteer.
Well, we could probably do a volunteer, but they would need, I'm not sure about a volunteer, to be alone with the kids.
I wouldn't feel comfortable.
No, I think to be alone with the kids, you have to be, I'm just going off what we do for coaches. A volunteer coach can't be alone with a group of kids. They have to be with a paid coach.
I'm just trying to think of how do we, so if we don't have space to gather everybody, but still have them spread out, and they have to go to their classrooms at some point, how do we relieve the teachers for that period of time, right, until 8 o'clock? So that first half hour, 45 minutes even, you could extend that if you had someone who could go into each classroom, right? And so volunteers just made sense.
Yeah.
Because I think there's probably quite a few out there who
Right.
would give up an hour in the morning to come in, but if that doesn't meet that requirement, then we can't do that. But
We probably could do some kind of rotating thing with aides and things, people that we have on staff at the time. We won't be able to cover everybody.
we've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of parents, right, who work full-time, have nowhere for their kids to go. Childcare is very hard to find in this area normally, let alone now when everybody's looking for it all at the same time and someone at the last minute. If we can free up, but I'm very sympathetic to the planning concerns that are being raised, right? So if there's some way that during the normal school day, we can free that time up, I think that probably makes more sense than anything else, because I mean, that works for everybody then, right? Like, it just.
Even cycled like grade levels, like first and second grade teachers. First half of the week where the students are spread out, and then last half of the week, third and fourth graders are spread out, so those teachers can get some planning time in.
We definitely can look at cycling some people in, cycling people through. Have to take into consideration, we have parents and teachers doing duties in the morning. They're taking temperatures. They're, at the doors, watching kids come in, making sure, so, we have some of our people that we use for duties already being used, but we might be able to cycle a grade level, possibly. I'd have to look and see what we have available.
So that might be another area where we could use outside volunteers, is at the door doing temperatures, so that our parents and teachers could get off the hook for that, maybe, get that time back.
They wouldn't technically be alone with kids, so as long as, possibly.
My concern is, everybody's seen emails, comments from the parents that a lot of them just don't have time off. And the next time we are forced to change our learning model to send students home, they're burning up whatever time they might have offered and beg for that. You know, also, please don't make us burn out more. And I just don't see that 2-hour delay and early dismissal solves that problem. Like Josh, the other Josh said, totally sympathetic. We're asking the teachers to do more. So I'm all about if we can figure out ways to take stuff off their plate, you know, then that's theoretically just as good as giving them more time to do extra work is to take the extra work away. And it sounds like we're really down to the 5 and 10 minute chunks. Every bit makes a difference. And we talked about having heart volunteers come in. It's clear that, you know, just running copies doesn't get them back to time. But if we have somebody to run copies, wipe their rooms down, get somebody else to be taking temperatures, get back to holding at least 3 of the 5 grades till 8:05 in the morning, sounds like we're starting to add up to some serious time back for them. I hope.
Mr. Becker, I know we've had 3 different options proposed with the 2-hour delay and then the early dismissal and then the full virtual day for every Friday. Has there been any discussion regarding maybe not having a virtual day every Friday, but maybe having one per month just to allow people to get caught back up?
Earlier we said any combination of any of this could be. We can make changes and approve anything and then make the changes afterwards and post them. So it could be any combination of.
Looking at the Act 80 days in November, is the current intention for in-person parent-teacher conferences?
Right now, I think with the current atmosphere, we're going to be doing virtual parent conferences.
I mean, it seems like the 2-hour delay and the early dismissal, I mean, there's some definite downsides to that. I think that would probably be better suited for parents and families because then at least the children get to go to school 5 days a week. At the same time, that probably does not help the teachers as much as they want because, you know, 2 hours here and there doesn't seem like a ton of time. Is there like a middle ground options that we can throw out and look at? I know I mentioned just the idea of maybe one every once in a while and not every Friday. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Something kind of in between those 2 options.
What do we see from neighboring districts? How are they dealing with this?
I'll just give you a couple, for instance. Everybody knows Central Columbia is doing Act 80 days. They were able to do that. They had a little more time built in their calendar, their schedule. So they were able to do 10 Act 80 days. Bloomsburg right now is doing virtual Fridays. Shamokin is having some early dismissals. Mount Carmel has some early dismissals. Not as long. I think they're out every day, 20 minutes early. Their teachers also have contractual 2 planning periods in their contract. Lime Mountain is doing a 2-hour 2-hour delay schedule through Christmas, possibly through the end of the year. So they're kind of the options that I put out there, what some area schools are doing.
Doesn't sound like anybody's found the middle ground that you're looking for.
I just think it's important, regardless of what we come up with, that we come up with something. Because I mean, we do value our teachers, and making the wrong decision on something like this, I feel would definitely send the wrong message.
Two concerns or just things that I was thinking about is, you know, I think a lot of parents that have reached out to us have said, we have used up any time off we're due and have exhausted our legal resources trying to get additional time to be with our kids. We can't find childcare. The concern is if school ends up shut down for any period of time during cold and flu season, that we're gonna see kids who shouldn't be left home alone because people have to make a really hard choice. And that concerns me. My other question is just kind of logistically thinking about some different paths that people could take depending on this decision. What is the level of concern that we'll see students or families who are unhappy with these choices convert to cyber charter schools? Can they do that at this point?
They can do it at any point. They can move from live instruction to a cyber school, and not necessarily have to be ours.
Right.
At any time. And their cyber schools are still putting commercials out, if you haven't. Saw one last night.
On virtual days, how long is instruction time on those?
Varies by teacher.
It does vary by teacher. We're asking our teachers to put instruction out. So in a elementary school, it may go till noon, around noon. High school, each class should have some type of instruction going on. High school, middle school. Now, it may be synchronous or asynchronous. If you're a Spanish teacher and you have 4 sections of Spanish 1, you may videotape your Spanish 1 and have it out there for your other 3 classes.
Do we have any kind of grades or metrics back to see our students falling further behind or not?
We don't have any hard numbers right now, Josh. Our grading, just talking with teachers, we are seeing some kids struggling a little bit. They seem to be struggling being virtual, not completing assignments, that type of thing. But, you know, with the end of the market period coming up here in a month or so, we'll have some more grades. I know there's been some testing that Jen did, and that was earlier in the year, and those tests showed some declines, but that would be mainly before, it'd be last spring into the summer.
Right. So, again, my other concern then is just, I think kids need every last ounce of instructional time they can get. Now, one of the things on virtual days, instructional time is not near as much as it is in person. Part of that's by design, because otherwise, if they're doing it the exact same amount of time, then they're not getting any planning time back. You get that. But I would really, really want to exhaust every effort to take work off of their plate to get that planning time back, rather than burdening parents more right now.
I agree with Josh. I think our best bet is to figure out how we can get them back their planning time as it wasn't before. Just because I mean, judging from what we've heard during hybrid model, virtual, just especially for these younger kids, doesn't seem to be working out all that great. And then, you know, if something does happen where we have to make a drastic schedule shift, I am concerned that parents aren't going to be able to take time off that they need to. But of course, we also have to worry about with the teachers is making sure that they also have that time. So I think we really do need to. And we're some plan out where we can get students in the building all 5 days, but also make sure that teachers have as much time as possible that we can work around for planning.
So from what I'm hearing, we'll do an agenda hearing period, and then are we gonna look to table this motion to a later date and relook at this? Or do we want to pick an option?
I think we're gonna have to table it. I mean, until we find out if we have the support staff to give the teachers that planning time, you know, how you're gonna work that to keep the kids in the cafeteria or in, you know. I think we're gonna have to table it until we find out if we have the staff to.
I know it's gonna be impossible to stage our whole school. Cafeteria, even if we used a large group area. Right now, we have a class coming into the cafeteria for lunch, and we use tables, desks, and the bleachers. And then we also have second grade, I think it's second grade, eating lunch in their classrooms.
Right.
Can I How many students are sitting at a table in the cafeteria?
I think there's three. One, two,
So-
1, 2, 3.
They're sitting 3 at a table in the cafeteria further apart than they're sitting next to them in class.
Yeah, well, because they're demasking to eat, so we're trying to keep 6 feet as best as possible in the cafeteria.
Okay. So one grade when they come in pretty well fills the cafeteria.
Pretty much. And then as one's leaving, another one's coming in, so Mr. Fetterman has it working pretty well. And again, 2nd grade is in their classroom.
So if they're in there in the morning masked, we should be able to get more than one grade in because they could be theoretically as close as they are during class since they're not unmasked and eating.
Possibly.
I'm just thinking, if, like I said, if we could even get kindergarten 1st and 2nd out, and maybe 2nd switches with 3rd, 2nd gets Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 3rd grades Tuesdays and Thursdays in there. And I don't want to shortchange 4th grade teachers again. I'm just assuming that if they tell the kids to sit down, be quiet, and do some worksheets, that they have a better chance of actually getting some peace. I could be totally
Pretty
wrong.
assumptive there. What?
How many
Pretty assumptive.
How many teachers are there, K through 4?
There's 5 at each grade level, plus how much of the special ed. So you got 20, 25, plus
3 of
another
those.
3, yeah,
And then I have
30, low 30s.
Just, it really seems like the ideal solution is just increase their planning time with the kids in the classroom. So get the teacher out of the classroom for some block of time. So kids are in school for the full day, 5 days a week. And then either they're grouped somewhere in the large group area or cafeteria like we're talking about, or they're in their classrooms and we just find people to cover for blocks of time. And even if that's a rotating, like not every day you get an hour block, maybe you get a 2-hour block every 3 days, and that whoever is watching this classroom moves from classroom to classroom, which is, I don't know how the staffing would cover that. I don't know. We could build a model very quickly to see how we could cover that and what we would actually need. But if we can only use school staff to watch the kids, then we're kind of limited, right, in what we have available. So we have fixed constraints. So we could figure out exactly what we could do here. We can't do it in the next 20 minutes for this meeting, but we could build a linear programming model and say, here is the optimal solution given the constraints we have, like the mathematically optimal, and maybe that's not okay. Maybe that doesn't meet our needs, but we would at least know where we're at then, I guess is what I'm saying.
So you're saying kids would be in their classroom and.
Yeah, kids go to their normal classrooms and then some number of days a week, for some number of hours of each of those days during the week, someone comes in essentially a sub into the classroom and isn't teaching. They're just there, non-instructional hours, just somebody essentially watching them, monitoring them, put on a movie or something, whatever. Because the alternative is they sit at home and do the same thing, right? And when they're at home, then parents can't be at work or they have to have childcare, and that's a whole other problem. So if we can keep the kids in school, normal time, 5 days a week, and relieve a block of time for each teacher for their planning period, that would be equivalent to giving them the 2-hour delay or the virtual day. I think that's very much worthwhile, even if it ends up costing the district some money to figure it out, because I think the alternative is we're going to have people running the cyber school, and we can't afford that either. So that's where I'm at. I don't think I can make a decision tonight on what we should do, but I also don't think we can drag this out for I think we need to see where we're at here within the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think if you had a collection of substitutes who were available to do something like that, I think you're exactly right. I mean, freeing up some time I guess question is, does the district have a strong substitute pool?
We do not.
Like none.
So,
But do they need to be, they don't need to be substitute teachers, that's the question. So what is the requirement?
Well,
I guess?
depending on what we're gonna do with the kids.
Right,
They
so
just need to
I'm
be
essentially
watched.
saying you just need an adult in the room to meet whatever minimum requirements there are. This would be the equivalent of them eating lunch. Who do you need for them to eat lunch? Right? Who needs to be with them while they eat lunch or they are in the large group area waiting for the next assembly to start? You need a responsible person there to monitor the classroom, not to teach, not to do anything other than monitor the kids for 2 hours. Put on like I said, put on a movie or something. I don't know what the right answer is. Color in place, depending on the grade level. It really is just, I don't want to say it's babysitting, but that's essentially, it's childcare. And the alternative is sending people to home where there isn't childcare potentially, either at home or not available in the community.
Well, Mr. Becker, I mean, maybe this is a good opportunity to address the public, but I mean, if we have people who are volunteering to come in and spend time in the classroom and help out, I mean, are there people from the community who would be interested in working in a substitute capacity? I'm sure we're probably always looking for substitute teachers or substitute paraeducators.
Yeah, we've put that out, and actually we redid with the new website. We put some employment questionnaires up on top, so as soon as you open up the employment part, it pops out. I have to give Teresa credit for developing that.
What are the requirements to be a substitute parent and a substitute teacher?
A substitute paraeducator, and I can only speak for, my professional experience, is pretty much anyone with a high school diploma. Obviously, there's clearances, background checks, that whole thing. But we definitely employ substitute paraeducators. Sometimes they're a little bit harder for me to find. Substitute teachers, typically those positions pay a little bit more. But at that point, then you're looking for someone with a bachelor's degree at a minimum, either with a teaching certificate or, run through like a guest teacher training program or something like that.
So substitute paras could theoretically be parents who want to volunteer that have clearances and a background check?
Yeah, and I mean, that would be a district thing. The background check side of things is different. I mean, your Act with 168 forms and things like that come into play, which I don't think that would really apply for a volunteer.
Unless they were, no, it wouldn't be a volunteer, it'd be a substitute. Or a volunteer one.
so if we got 2 of them and they gave 10 teachers a 30-minute planning period every day, that's 5 hours. And then it's not wasted time. It can be, here's the worksheet, but instead of me as the teacher having to sit here while you're doing it, now that Paris here, you have good instructional time. The 2 of them would cover 4 grades.
Yeah, I think if how you would actually implement it would depend on who you had and how many you had and what you figured out there. And ideally it would be utilize the time well rather than sit here and watch a movie kind of thing. But in the worst case scenario, I think just having someone in the classroom and removing the teacher from the classroom for some period of time accomplishes what we're looking for. Parents want kids in school full time. Teachers want planning time. And everybody's interested in, the best outcome for students for educational purposes. But in either, we're in a spot where there's going to be a deficit in that no matter what, right? Kids are going to be home virtual and not getting a full day's instruction because we're either half-time or we're taking a full virtual day or whatever it is, or they're going to be in school and the teachers aren't going to be prepared well enough for their actual instructional period of time. So I think no matter what, we're in a position where it's not an ideal situation, and that's very clear to everybody. So even if the worst case is it's just sit here and do something non-instructional for the next hour and a half while your teacher is out in their planning period, so be it. It's really just find the right people to cover it for now.
And I think that's going to give the teachers more time, a longer period of time, instead of trying to squeeze in 25 minutes in the morning. It's going to give them
Right, it may
How
make
long
sense to
period
give
of
them
time?
an hour and a half block or a 2 hour block,
Right.
you know, every other or every third day or whatever it ends up being.
Right.
So I think what we have now is two separate plan. I mean, we have a short-term situation and a long-term plan. Because in order to, if you're gonna look at building up your sub list, I mean, your background checks and clearances and things like that sometimes drag out a while to be able to provide that support and service. This is something that I'm imagining needs to be addressed relatively quickly. Do we want to come up with a long-term plan to increase our, substitute capabilities to be able to provide people on site rotating time during the day? And then just look at sort of like a stopgap plan for this exact instance right now.
I mean, what's the Heart volunteer list look like? They would all have their clearances, right? They're not substitutes now, but if they have the appropriate clearances and the right credential, which if it is a high school diploma, many of them would meet that requirement, and we would just need a board meeting to hire them as substitutes.
Right, they would probably.
168 forms and all that, I defer to Carl on that one. How would that work?
Well, if they've been employed somewhere else, by law, you have to put that out there. You also have to look at the governor's orders originally about visitors and volunteers in the school. And another one of my districts down in Harrisburg have been through this process here. I do like Josh's idea, but you're gonna have to spend some money. You may have to increase your day-to-day substitute and maybe be a lot higher than anybody else to draw those subs in. And I can have that discussion with Mr. Becker, but it's not uncommon for schools to be looking at, and what you're doing right now is probably what 100 schools are wrestling with right now. But the biggest issue is once you have kids in school, pushing them back out, and you're going to polarize a good, probably 80% of your parents are going to have negative consequences as a result of doing that. So the other version is spend a little more money, pay a little more to get the subs and draw them away from the other districts. Now you might get into a bidding war, but if you're paying, I don't know, I'm just guessing, $120 a day for a sub, day sub.
No, we pay 90.
You might have to up that to $150 a day.
Yeah, and that's what I said, like it makes sense in this instance to spend that money for substitutes, right? These aren't long-term, full-time district employees that come with all of the additional costs of retirement and full benefits and all that. So it is confined to the period of time where we need them. And the alternative is people end up going to cyber school at $17,000 per student additional charge to us.
I can share a little bit of my experience with the substitutes that I work with. We currently pay $115 a day for our subs, and we book them in advance, sometimes a year in advance, for the entire year for a collection of days, so that we're not calling them the morning of and then asking them to come in. And that's just how we run it. I probably run about 5 additional people per day. And putting something like that in place might definitely help us kind of weather this storm a little bit.
Make it so.
Yeah, and you could schedule it though. You don't have to necessarily say, sub A could be Monday, sub B could be Tuesday.
Yeah, what we do is we call, I'll check in with the substitute teacher probably in June and say, hey, do you want to work with us next year? I will guarantee you 90 days of work. I'll take a school calendar and they'll go through and we'll highlight those 90 days of work. And that way they know that they're guaranteed to work through our organization from the beginning of the year throughout their 90-day term. And if they want additional work when it comes up, then they have that. But we lock them in so they're not, get calls from Central or get called from Bloomsburg, like they're our people. But again, that takes time to do. And at this current situation right now, I could tell you, I look for substitutes all the time and they're just very hard to find. A lot of times we have people who are, they're retirees and they're worried about coming in and contacting the kids. So it's not an easy sell right now.
And I've heard a lot of that, either they're afraid based on their age to go into a congregate setting, or on the flip side, they are the backup childcare for their grandchildren and they don't want to be unavailable for that. I think the concern with going to cyber school is just if things keep changing, we know things are going to keep changing, but if people get the impression, whether it's real or not, that things keep getting peeled back further and further, they're just going to look for a consistent option that answers some of these problems. That's my
Josh,
on the cyber, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say your idea was to take the existing volunteer pool, right?
Yeah, take
And
whoever we
convert
can.
them to paid substitutes.
Yes.
And my question to Carl was,
Okay.
if you were to do that, Carl, they would still be required to go through that Act 168 process. So it wouldn't
Yes.
save us any time.
No,
Okay.
Don't they have to
that's,
go through?
that's why I recommended
For
upping
volunteers in
the
school, they have to go through all their background checks. anyway.
Most, but there's different ones. For,
Different levels for
There's
volunteers.
another layer.
Do
So-
we have CARES funds left that could be dedicated to this?
We might be able to move some.
That would make a lot of sense.
That's why I said the
Yeah.
Yeah,
increasing the
that's what other
cost.
people are doing.
If you're getting the money from the feds, it really shouldn't make a difference. I mean, remember, you're drawing from longer distances, and people are only gonna drive here if the money is much more attractive than anything else they're seeing.
We increased hours this year, went from 100 to 115, and I'd say the districts that were near our area that we were pulling from probably followed suit and went from 115 to 125. But you also have people who live within this community who are excited to be part of this school and may actually be interested in doing it maybe for a little bit less money. We have to make it worthwhile.
And I think there's a lot of people who have some flexibility and an interest in keeping school open 5 days
Correct.
a week whenever possible, who,
That's why I said, put it out to
Again, this
everybody
isn't
who's
a
listening to
forever
this
thing.
meeting right now, if it is something that they might be interested in. And Jimmy said it's on our website right now?
If it helps, I just had somebody respond to it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. But seriously, that's what you need. You need to build this sub pool, because having, a couple subs on call, it just doesn't do it. People get a runny nose and we're asking them to stay home from school, but we don't have someone to cover their class when that happens.
Well, do we want to put a motion on the floor at some point to raise the,
Let's,
from $90 to whatever figure we so choose?
If it would help, and you guys might already have this, I do believe there's a salary study out there to look at area school districts to see what the daily rate for substitute teachers was. I could probably help track that down if you prefer to look at it and kind of come up with a figure.
We've seen that in the past. I know I've seen that, and we were on the lower end of it.
Another thing to consider is, like Fullington will turn around and say, I'll give you a $300, $500 signing bonus to be a bus driver if you do X. Other thing not to rule out, to increase your day-to-day sub rate, but also indicate if they commit to X amount of days between now and the end of the year, you could get X more that we'll just give you if you meet that. And it has to be something tangible, but once again, if you can use the CARES Act money, I think the taxpayers would rather pay increased taxes for day-to-day subs than go to pay it towards daycare. That's just me.
So I guess it's safe to say that we want to look to build our sub capacity. And that, again, is a longer term option, but for this particular instance.
For short-term action, what are we going to do?
well, so I go back to what is the minimum requirement for someone to be in the classroom? Do they have to be a para?
I'd say they have to be an employee.
So our coaches are employees, and they don't have any of these additional certifications, and they're allowed to be along with
They
kids
would
for
still have
extended
the
periods
same
of time.
background
You have
checks.
to pay them.
I don't have a problem with paying them. I'm saying finding the pool of people. So for anybody who's listening, right, this sounds ridiculous now. We're talking about spending money to hire people after we just went through this huge budget crunch, right? This is very different than, hiring or having full-time employees who come with the larger benefits pool and the larger requirements for, retirement and all that comes with it. Short-term dedicated to this, whatever it costs to make this work, makes sense for the district, right? So if we can find enough people willing to do it, right, that's where the problem is, right? At some point, there'll be an intersection of the right people and the right amount of money. It's just if we're restricting that pool to a certain set of qualifications that are higher than what everyone in the area has, then it's either going to be more expensive or take longer or both to find them,
A
right?
sub-para for me would be a person with a minimum of a high school diploma. That would be.
I think that's
That's the
that's
same
same with us. That's the
Right,
same with
so,
us.
so that requirement is met, and then what is the other, the part 165
A 168
or
form.
168, what is that?
It's like a background, it's part of the background.
How
check.
long does that take to complete?
Well, it's a quick form, and we can email them, so.
So it's essentially not as long
Could
as
take
people pass it.
upwards of 60 days,
I mean,
but
it
if
takes a couple
people
weeks to get
are
back.
quick to respond, so if nobody has been subject to the 3 questions on, have you ever been interviewed, have you ever, subject to indicated or a founded sexual abuse claim, and they respond relatively quickly within days, they'll be in within days.
Okay.
If they take 60 days, but other employers are subject to penalties if they don't respond to it.
But it does drag, I mean, it always messes with me because inevitably I'll be trying to hire someone. And if they don't have that in by the time I need to put them through a board, then it gets pushed back.
Sure.
Josh, I could send you a copy of that form. if you want.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to know what how extensive that was, and are we talking like it is required like a 90-day waiting period, or it's reasonable to assume that we can
It can be done.
up to
pretty quickly.
60, but it could be done within a week
I sometimes get them back the same day.
or even the same day. So if we cast the net broadly enough and we find enough people interested, right? At least some of them should maybe get back within a week to be available.
If
So
we
that,
have that volunteer list, could we go to the volunteer list and say, volunteers, you want to be a substitute para, fill out forms.
Right.
And hope that we get Act 168 back and then just use them as they're available.
that's what I see as our short-term solution, is close to the long-term solution as we can get, but just using the people that we already know.
The only problem with the volunteers is they do not have to provide the FBI clearance. They have the signed affirmation, notarized affirmation. So that would be the only thing, but that's just a matter of going, getting fingerprinted. The next day I can verify
And
it.
if
Here's
we,
a question for you. What do we pay teachers hourly outside of their contracted hours? What's the
27.
hourly rate?
$27.
27 an
27.
hour.
So we're looking at, say, 180, 200 bucks for a day, an 8-hour day. You're looking at, what, 25 or whatever it is. To, having the teachers or paying a teacher an extra hour or whatever it is the equivalent of it.
yeah, I'm good with whatever group of
I'm just
people we
saying, like,
find. Right? I think
If you're looking at substitutes and everything else, teachers don't want to stay when they're not being paid. I'm not saying anything against that, everybody should be paid for their time, but if we're paying the 27 bucks an hour and it's 25 for a substitute, and trying to find substitutes, which is going to be an interesting time.
But the problem is, it's like a cafeteria. You need like 20 hands within confine. I mean, if teachers are all here from 7:30 to 3, I don't know how you're gonna break those teachers out unless they would have a prep and then give it up. I don't know how you.
I think we just.
Are you talking
Hey,
about
say an
the
extra,
staff?
have them stay an extra.
Yeah, I'm just saying, paying them an extra hour a day, to stay an extra hour. If they want the extra time or whatever it is.
How many teachers do we have?
Just under 100.
How many?
Just under 100. 97, I think.
Subs are cheaper.
So.
But
Susie
you
was
have
up
to pay
there. I think Susie
retirement on
offered that
that,
to the elementary
Social Security.
teachers.
Yeah, and I mean.
I'm just
none-
throwing out ideas, I'm not, like
So,
I said,
I
I'm
don't,
trying,
what is,
I know substitutes are very,
what is, what's your impression as the administration as far as whether or not that would be well received from the teachers, or is that not actually gonna meet their, they just want some time freed up?
I think they want some time
Just
freedom.
more
That's what they gave. That's what they're, I don't think anybody's looking for extra pay, or that wasn't mentioned to me at all.
But that was the impression.
But no, I mean, it's an idea, but
No,
I just,
I mean,
I'm just
even
throwing,
if,
I'm just throwing ideas out there, because I know substitutes are tough to find, no matter how much we can. I mean,
right, but this is different, I think, than a normal search for a substitute, right? This is, right, this is a different circumstance than normal, right? And I'm not saying it's gonna be easy to find people. But I think if we're willing to pay more, and we're willing to cast a wide net and, only set the minimum requirements for these things, because we're not expecting instruction necessarily. Maybe if we get someone who is qualified to do that, then great, but it's different than, hey, we want someone who has teaching experience, or hey, we want someone who has had previous experience in front of a classroom. This is really anybody who can pass the requirements. And
right now, we have part-time paras, and I think the starting wage for them is like $9 an hour. I think that's where they're at. So we might run into a problem where if we cast that wide net and get, and then we're looking at paying them more than that. Do some of them quit and just become substitute? I'm just, running a constant.
Here's the other thing. We're completely against an early dismissal or a 2-hour delay because of the parents.
Not
We
completely.
think that that's going to be an issue with childcare at home. Was that?
I mean, that's the general sense. I'm not saying I'm against it completely, if that's
I'm
what
just
makes
looking at it
sense.
as in, we're looking for time in the day.
The feedback has been, if you do anything other than 5 days a week, normal full-time in school, that creates a burden that is too excessive for a significant portion of the district. And then on top of that, because everyone is clamoring for childcare for that same period of time, if they can't be at work, if they have to be at work, it's almost impossible to find childcare outside the home. That's what the feedback has been, regardless of what period of time you pick. It's just.
Okay, I was just looking at it as in outside of we're looking for an hour of non-instructional time, and an early dismissal is 2 hours of non-instructional time. I was looking at instructional time, but I understand what you're coming from.
I'm trying to solve both, like the request we've seen is I want my kid in school full-time, 5 days a week, the full period of time, right? And then from the teaching side, I need more time to plan.
Yeah.
So if you can meet both of those requirements in some way, I mean, then we'll get other emails, but these are the most pressing things that have been presented, and it seems like if we can come up with a solution that meets both of those, front leading issues, childcare and planning time, I think that solves I think that's the best solution we can come up with if we can make it work. I don't have a better idea.
So
Do we want to try and figure something out with this, give it like a 2-week time frame to figure this out, and then try to find something, either have them bear it out for the next 2 weeks here till the next meeting, or what exactly?
I think probably should do something.
Delay.
If we're changing any substitute rates or anything, the board would have to approve that. So we need some kind of approval on any kind of substitute rate change. And we haven't studied it to come up with what it would be. So to do something tonight regarding that price or amount of pay, I think would be premature with that, without doing any kind of study or seeing what it would do.
When's our next meeting?
2 weeks.
here's my question. Have we run any days where we couldn't get a sub this year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's happening somewhat regularly.
It happens everywhere.
When we met with Mr. Fallon in the beginning of the year, he was basically going to be the sub for the elementary school.
Okay.
That's our principal, so.
Yeah.
Same deal with middle school and high school?
Yes, in middle school. High school, we have a mega sub, so we're kind of coverage there, but once we get 3 classes in there, then we're covering. So teachers are giving up their planning time to cover extra classes if they have to.
So, just sort of combining everything to try and maybe get this trip. I would like to try this for a couple weeks and give the administration authority to go full board, see if you can come up with a plan. How many people do you need? If you get subs approved in the meantime, start bringing them in and start leaving planning time now and report back to us in 2 weeks. We figure we need 3. I can only get 1. I got 0. It's not working, whatever the case may be. But I think you've had a lot of good ideas to try and research further.
You would still plan to interview these people, right? Just because somebody meets the minimum qualifications doesn't mean you want them in our classrooms.
Yeah, we'd have
So there
to,
would
we'd
be-
have to.
Right, it's still.
Right.
All right, so to move forward here, does somebody want to make a motion to table item A?
But we need to figure out how long this is
Well,
going to take
we
to
need to
figure this
something-
plan out.
Right now, it's
agree with
discussion
you.
or action,
Oh, well,
so
then
it
we
can
can
just
leave a
remain.
discussion and not do anything. I didn't
Nobody moved to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Question is do we want to do anything in the meantime while we're trying to figure this out?
Like this week.
Like this
Right.
week, the next week, the next 2 weeks? Is there something we can do? Because it's not gonna, finding subs and finding people isn't gonna happen overnight.
When's your next board meeting?
2 weeks. We need
19th.
two
The 19th.
weeks of something, if we can do something for the teachers. That meets also, tries to meet parents' needs as well, but something.
Well, I don't think doing anything this week to the schedule makes sense. It's too tight now. So if we want to do something, then it makes sense for next week, in my opinion,
So, but that's, I'm just asking because,
Right, and then the reality is, we may end up with an additional positive or multiple positive cases, and then we go full virtual that day, right? So all this could be for naught, right? Everybody listening in at home needs to remember that, like, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but, so what do you want to do for next week, if that's?
How would we feel about just doing what we did this last time around, where we put one virtual day onto the calendar and said, this is the one virtual day, and then we'll come back and readdress it and look at it and say, October 16th as a virtual day.
For me personally, we've only had 1 full week this year,
No, I totally understand.
and I get the parents' frustration with that. They have not had, besides the second week of the school year, a regular work week to plan around at all. I would prefer to come back here on the 19th, see what's working or not, and if you can get on the phone tonight, and does anybody want to sub for us for 2 straight weeks out of our current list? I'm offering you the remaining 4 days this week, 5 next week. We got to increase our pool, but that might move the needle for somebody as opposed to just calling up, will you do 1 day for us?
And keep in mind, I'm just throwing one idea out there. I mean, there's a lot more ideas and things that would work. I'm just thinking in the short-term time for at this exact moment. That's the only thing I could think of right now, but I agree with Kenny. I think, in fact, I'd almost go ahead and say you need more than 1 person. You need 3 people in the elementary school.
Yeah.
To do it right.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just saying, I would like to see just call them up, starting tomorrow and keep hammering away.
I just know what I've struggled with in finding people, and it's hard on a typical year, and in this year, it's 10 times harder. And I'd hate to put it on the back burner and not be able to get something done, just because we're waiting for something to happen. So that's why, I agree with Eli in saying we've got to have some sort of kind of stopgap plan right now.
I think that we've experienced a lot of virtual days so far this year. I think there would be value in exploring one of these other options, so we know what we gain or lose from it on both sides. So my opinion would be, if we were going to take action before 2 weeks, would be that we consider 2-hour early dismissal next Friday.
Yeah, I think anything is better than nothing.
I think that all the parents that I've talked to since these options came on board docs, who asked me what was going on, overwhelmingly have said that an early dismissal is less disruptive to their workday than starting late. And then we know what it is, and it may not be ideal for teachers, and it may not be ideal for parents, but it's another option that we've explored while we work through other options at the same time.
So we want to try to do just like a single instance, buy us a little bit of time, rather than, I mean, obviously not vote on that full-blown calendar.
Yeah, do we just want to do next Friday, early dismissal, and then relook at this next board meeting?
You know, you can have a special meeting. You could have Mr. Becker get his administrators together by the end of the week, have a recommendation to say, my recommendation is to increase the substitute rate to X in order to draw. Our inquiries have revealed that we could possibly get 8 substitutes if we went this route. And notify you guys and you have a special meeting. You could do it in the morning before you go to work. You could do it at noon, and you give him the authority to do that at that point in time. I'm just saying, I sat through the last meeting when you said delivery model, but it has to come back to the board. And a lot of my districts in July and August, boards give superintendents the ability to hire staff, you know, pending ultimately, you know, retroactive approval. There's nothing wrong or illegal about saying the superintendent is given discretion to expand the substitute pool to include looking at increasing the day-to-day rate in order to accomplish that. He can then email you where he's going. And if you think, yeah, I think that's good, you can turn around and vote on that at a special meeting next week. But I just think you shouldn't tread water. I think you need to move.
I'd have absolutely no problem giving the administration the authority to recruit, hire, tentatively hire, or whatever the wording would be, and, you know, including setting the appropriate rate for substitutes.
Okay, minus the right part, can you make a motion on that?
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt here too. I'm not sure if I can even interject here too. I just want to speak for the elementary teachers here too. The physical, mental, emotional well-being, just they're type A personalities. They put 110% into their instruction. They want to do what's best for the kids. Right now, the current model we have is very taxing, very trying. Anytime you can provide for them is more than appreciated. If you want to explore some other avenues, I have my concerns then too about finding subs. Not saying it's an impossibility, we can look for that. But in the meantime, if something could be done to provide them some additional planning time each week, that would go a long way. I'm not looking to make it difficult for our taxpayers, our parents, and families. I feel for you guys as well. But they want to give a good product for your children, and having this little extra time would go a long way. So I just wanted to voice my concerns. Thank you.
We don't want to do a delay or early dismissal at all this week. Not this week. Just asking. I'm just asking opinion. Tim, no.
I don't think so. That's even
I would do it next week.
next week.
Yeah, I'm okay with next week. I think this week is too tight for people to plan. I mean, dismissals and delays when they're caused by snow or other emergencies are a different story. It's just to plan it, give people time.
I think we need to, before we make any more decisions at the agenda hearing period.
Yeah, I agree too. But if we're gonna add a motion, we should, if we're gonna do any motion, we should say that so that it gets incorporated in the agenda.
I agree. So I will make a motion to give the superintendent the authority to expand the substitute pool until our next meeting, and to make a recommendation if there should be a rate change for substitutes.
And we want to after that planning period next week.
I would rather do that as a separate.
Well,
I'll second that.
right, well, now that's the motion. We can't vote on that until we have the agenda hearing.
That's
period.
correct.
And then we're gonna make another motion, we think, on possible planning period, and then we'll have to.
You're saying we can't have two motions out at the same time?
Correct. But that's, it's on it, so recommend the agenda hearing period.
Yep, let's do that agenda hearing period. Only questions that would pertain to.
They're all related.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. Just my vote is probably different on those two items.
I understood where you were at. Yep.
Okay, Heather Brocious from Ralphville Township. My understanding is there will be discussion tonight at tonight's meeting and likely a vote on which days will continue as virtual instruction moving forward. I hope the decision will not be made lightly, and I urge you to reconsider having a virtual day each week to allow planning time for teachers. The school year began with option for full-time in-person learning. We chose this option as we work best for our family with our work schedules and educational social needs of our child. My child, as do many others, struggle with online learning. I am not a teacher, and we both end up frustrated after each and every one of these days. On the virtual days, 1 hour of instruction followed by a packet of papers to complete is not the education model I would expect from the school district. For those who work from home, how do they balance working and teaching their child at the same time? For those who can't work from home, how do they keep finding and affording childcare? There's no daycare availability, and everyone is competing for the same childcare options in the community. We are not setting these children up for success. Rather, it seems like we are barely getting by with what counts as a school day. Both my husband and I work full-time hours during the day and have little time or little or no flexibility with our work schedules. We're going to exhaust our vacation time for these scheduled virtual days. So when school does have to close or go all virtual, we won't have any time left. Are we just supposed to quit our jobs and be teachers instead of having our trained teachers fill this role? Is the student's best interest in mind when all this planning time is requested? Keep the students in school as much as possible while you can. Needing a whole day to plan every week seems excessive. Further, as someone who works in healthcare, I'm expected to be present to meet the medical needs of our community. We do not get to close down healthcare just because we need more time or something unexpected happens. We figure out, and unfortunately, it sometimes means working harder and or extra hours. The teachers and administrators need to be more understanding of the impact they are causing on working families. There was also a suggestion of combining classes and having one teacher do all the virtual instruction. I would also vote against that option. The students and teachers have started building relationships, and the teachers know and understand their students, how their students think and work. Disrupting that negates any progress that has been made over the last month. My daughter likes her teacher, and from the interactions I've had, I feel they are a good fit together. Heart members have volunteered to help make copies and offload responsibilities for the teachers. I ask that you look at other options to meet the teachers' needs while keeping in mind the strain that it puts on the students and parents. Can they work on these items during the Unified Arts classes? It is completely unreasonable to work an extra 30 minutes. Is it completely unreasonable to work an extra 30 minutes or on 1 or 2 days a week? There has to be another time or help available that won't affect the quality of education being provided. As a taxpayer, I expect better from our district. I understand these are difficult times for all, but I ask that you really consider what is best for everyone before voting. I know the teachers didn't plan or expect this, but adding more responsibility onto parents/families isn't fair to us either. We appreciate the hard work everyone is contributing to this effort. Eric Tobias, Cleveland Township. Please consider the elementary age children and parents working full-time outside the home before you decide on a virtual day every week or early dismissal/2-hour delay each week. Child care is all but non-existent. There are constant technical difficulties on virtual days at all ends, not to mention the mass quantity of supplies they have to haul to and from school for virtual days just to do an hour or two of learning that day. I know COVID is hard on everyone, but these kids deserve a chance to be in school full-time every day. Working parents cannot continue to exhaust paid leave from work when there isn't even a COVID outbreak right now. They need to save PTO for such situation as hybrid or full virtual instruction due to a COVID outbreak. Misty Gensel, Locust Township. My child has attended all virtual since day one and has an excellent communication with their teacher, Mrs. Hauer and Mrs. Furman, have gone above and beyond by taking them away and assigning one teacher when she already has established a relationship. It is not only unfair to her, but also unfair to her education. Just because she is a virtual student should not mean she gets punished for being one of the 20%. Please don't change the layout of the virtual students just because they choose to stay home. April Morgan, Ralpho Township. I first want to thank the administration, board, and teachers for all their hard work and dedication to our students. I know none of these decisions are taken lightly. As a working parent of an elementary student, I feel strongly that he needs in-person learning. However, I do agree that teachers need more planning time, and if we continue keeping our students in at least 4 days a week, our family will make one virtual day work. Selfishly, Friday worked best for us, but we are only one family. Thank you for considering parent feedback. Amber Hilliwa. I think I chewed that one up. Hilwa, sorry. I chewed that one up before. My kids are in middle school and high school and have both struggled with virtual/hybrid this year. But as a family, we have done what we can to get through it thus far. I'm helping 2 kids. I can't imagine what it's like to help dozens. If elementary teachers want a virtual day to focus on lesson plans or any other reason, figure out a way to let them have it. Teachers need to be at their best if we expect our kids to be at their best. Tammy Weehee, Catawissa. Both my children are SoCo Live 100% virtual program. I am extremely disappointed in the one board member that indicated they should be taking care of the 80% of in-person, which is the bulk of the students, and trying to get them in person 5 days a week. My children's education is no less important than those that attend in person. I am a teacher and I teach all day and come home and put in extra time and effort with my children. Both of my children are thriving in the SoCo Live program. My youngest is in the gifted program and continues on her gifted path as well. As an educator and parent, please do not ever refer to some students' education being of any more value than another. You are representing the community and the students, and every single child is of importance. Please continue the SoCo Live program as was promised to parents that would continue throughout the year. Students have made bonds with their teacher and students, and it would be extremely detrimental to move these students at this time in the year. I commend the board members that spoke out that this would not be a good move for students to get a new teacher at this point of the year. Robert Wisnowski, Locust Township. A few years ago, we stopped going to school on Fridays during the winter when it was found it would save the district money. The teachers are now asking for time to improve instruction. The teachers must make all lessons handouts, and tests accessible to students. Students must be able to take their tests, submit work, and download work via Teams and other online options, regardless of the number of live versus in-person students. All students are using these methods to access and submit their work. This takes a tremendous amount of time to upload, change, and manipulate all things we are doing. We must also find time to meet with students who are 100% live, communicate with parents, and meet with counselors to meet the needs of our students. Having a day to communicate with parents, retype and upload all lessons, plan and meet with our team members is essential in keeping our instruction at the level that meets the rigor of state standards. Nicole Heim, Ralph Township. If elementary is a major issue, they have way more instructional time than is required by the state. Any thought of given to shortening instructional time an hour a day and classroom being covered by an aide or unified arts teacher the last hour of the day? Tammy Weehee. In response to the one teacher needing extra time, that is vital in order to be able to implement the curriculum in the best manner. If they do not have the time to properly prepare their lessons, you cannot expect instruction to be valuable and efficient. As a teacher, I can 100% relate to and understand these teachers' concerns. They are doing a phenomenal job dealing with the SoCo Live and need proper time to plan. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there is not a valuable time. These teachers are putting in so much extra time. If students have virtual day every Friday, they are still getting instruction on virtual days. Remember, schools are there to provide education and are not just babysitting services. In March, it was mandated that we close, and parents and families needed to make accommodations. Decisions shouldn't be made dependent on childcare. Education, safety, and the health of students and staff should be at the forefront.
The availability of childcare affects those three things. The health, welfare, and education of the children is affected by the availability of childcare outside of school. So it's all very relevant, I think.
Ian Unger, Catawissa Borough. The teachers are our biggest asset to this situation. If they need time to plan for our children's education, we should listen to them. If they're saying a virtual day is helpful, pick a day that can be sustained to allow parents to plan for this. Maybe create a link where parents can buddy up with parents who can stay home to allow them to drop their kids off for the virtual day. Jennifer Beislein, Catawissa Township. What about the kids eating breakfast at school in the morning? The gym cafeteria wouldn't work for staging. Most of them eat breakfast in their classrooms. They take breakfast with them to their, they don't eat in the cafeteria in the morning. Nicole Heim, Ralph Township. I'm assuming the liability is too high to have high school kids babysit. And I think they'd have to be employees of the school to be with the kid. Jennifer Beislein, Catawissa Township. If the substitute isn't teaching, then it's wasting the kids' time being in school anyway, because then they will not be learning and will be more riled up when the teacher comes back. If the kids are at home, there should be someone around to care for them. Or if they are virtual, they're still actually learning versus just sitting there.
I did make clear, my preference would be that there's some kind of instruction or worksheet there would be the preference. And everybody made clear we're throwing out options here to fix a very big problem.
Lynn Robinson's a teacher here. She's not a taxpayer.
Does anybody have an objection to reading?
Read it.
It doesn't make sense that parents would run to a cyber school if the board gives us one cyber day a week, or if a 2-hour delay or early dismissal. Cyber school will put their children at home 5 days a week.
This cyber school concern is for the, continuously changing model, and the fact that we set up SoCo Live so that people could have continuity with a given teacher. So in the discussion of switching to one teacher doing the SoCo Live and others doing in person, that's where the cyber school discussion becomes extremely relevant.
Jennifer Beislein, Catawissa Township. Now,
Mr. Becker, do you want me to give you a break?
That would be great. I'd love to have a glass of drink of water.
Yep. All right, so I'll continue on. So we're on comment 15. So this is Jennifer Beislein from Catawissa Township. Now you want substitute paras when you just furloughed how many because of the budget? Here's an idea. Hire back some of the people who lost their jobs because you people can't spend money appropriately. And no heart members are people's parents too. That goes against your volunteers, people with kids.
Just to be clear again, for hiring substitutes for a defined period of time has a very different impact on the budget and the long-term financial health of the district compared to full-time employees who get full benefits and a retirement that we have to allocate funds for.
Especially with CARES Act funds too.
I agree. CARES Act, especially if we can repurpose CARES Act money for this defined period of time.
Comment number 16 is from Angela Stanley, Ralpho Township. This almost 8 months has been stressful on everyone. Everyone's families, livelihoods, and ultimate well-being have been affected. Surveys have been used very often in the recent past to gather insight on what would work best for the families from the community whose children attend school. Would this be an instance where you should survey everyone again? Also, I know some sort of qualifiers have been used this year to gauge student learning. Do we have results of the amount of remediation needed to recover from the complete virtual learning we ended the school year with last year? Could this help us decide whether we use a complete virtual day versus a shortened in-person school day to help with the shortcomings right now? How many children are in Title I this year compared to last? How many parents are seeking further help evaluation for students due to feeling like they aren't making progress from missing so much in the previous school year? Thank you for all of your hard work and consideration to make the best choice for our children and our district.
Is Steph on here? Can she speak to any of those things?
Steph, are you on here? Did you see that question?
I'm on here. Can you just repeat the end, Brian, please?
Yes, let me hold on one second. Let me zip back. The last part, I'll read the last. How many children are in Title I this year compared to last? How many parents are seeking further help evaluation for students due to feeling like they aren't making progress from missing so much in the previous school year?
That's good. Thanks, Brian. We do have an increase in Title I students this year. I believe we're in the 70s, and that's without including anybody from kindergarten. So that number is going to go up once we test all of the kindergarten students. There have been a lot of parents concerned about progress and education and academics. So I do understand that there is a concern for, the education of the students. And we haven't made the growth that we should have made because of that gap.
The next comment is from Jen Rarick, Roaring Creek Township. Hello. Thanks to these amazing teachers for all their efforts. Rather than hiring strangers to watch the kids, are we able to give teachers an increase in wages for an additional 5 hours a week? They're likely already working the additional 5 hours, but at least they would be paid for it. Not sure how that works with contracts. Comment 18 is Jennifer White from Locust Township. Providing the playground equipment at local town parks and surrounding school districts are open for play, would it be possible to consider opening the elementary playground equipment? The students are permitted to keep their mask on even when they are outside for recess, so why can't they use the equipment?
It was part of the plan we put together. One of the suggestions was to block off the equipment, not let students use the playground equipment. That was a suggestion from PDE, and that's why we put it in our pandemic plan.
Comment 19 is from John Williams, Ralpho. If you bring these people in on a regular basis, aren't they becoming part of a bargaining unit position? You are not talking substitutes.
No, it'd be for a defined period of time, and defined as substitutes, not full-time employees.
It could be, long-term subs are usually defined as 90 or more consecutive days in the same position. Right now, you're looking for day-to-day subs.
Comment 20 is from Jennifer Beischlein, Catawissa Township. You just raised our taxes. Now you want it to increase again to pay for extra bodies. Use the CARES money or do a 2-hour delay or get out early at least. Then parents don't have to take a whole day off work, just a few hours, like 1 to 2 times a week.
Carl's the only one who said raise taxes.
Correct.
Comment 21 from Jennifer Beischlein, Catawissa Township. What about the safety of our kids putting an untrained volunteer in a room with 20 kids? Most places, paras only have a few kids at a time, not a whole classroom full. Who takes responsibility if something would happen to a kid, they get hurt or something?
Look, there's been several comments along this line, and nobody's yanking strangers off the street and throwing them in there without clearances. So
all of our normal precautions and expectations, and the administration would be expected to monitor and hold everyone accountable, just like we always do.
Comment 22, Jennifer Beischlein, Catawissa Township. Pay the teachers to stay an extra 30 minutes each day after school to make up those 30 minutes in the morning. Then childcare is a moot point and planning gets solved. If they don't want the time to plan, then no extra money. Comment number 3 is from comment 23 is from Darlene Beischlein, Catawissa Township. If you're putting paraprofessionals in the room covering a group of students, who is liable if something happens to any child that could get injured? Comment 20, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
District would be covered. I mean, they're employees. We have parents watching kids now.
Comment 24 is from Erica Tobias from Cleveland Township. If you go to a 2-hour delay or early dismissal, I will need my kids' bus only that time. They are currently full-time pickup and drop off due to COVID. Will the bus company and school accommodate and make sure my kids can ride the bus to school or from school on 2-hour delay, early dismissal days only? Otherwise, remaining permanent parent pickup.
I'm sure we'd have to make adjustments for some parents if we went to a 2-hour delay.
Comment number 25 is from Crystal Yost, Ralpho Township. Good evening. If the school does use substitutes for instructional learning, are we then putting an additional burden on our teachers to now create lesson plans for when the substitutes are teaching? Mr. Becker, this time looks like 25 comments is where we're at.
Sounds good. We got a motion and a second. Can you just read that?
I think I have it
one more
right.
time before we vote on it, so we're all clear.
A motion to give the superintendent the authority to expand the substitute pool and to make a recommendation if there should be an increase to the substitute rate.
Motion was made by Josh. I second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Greg, can you state your vote for us? Are you an aye or?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's 9-0 in favor.
Are there any other motions at this time?
Do we want to discuss or entertain a early dismissal for next week? Or do we think that we'll?
I'd be in support of that if you want to just look at that single occurrence. But again,
Yeah, I'd like to motion for early dismissal next Friday.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
I think we've discussed probably enough.
We have to make this available for agenda hearing period. So we'll wait a couple minutes. If we don't get any comment, we'll.
Mr. President, this is Greg. I'd like to revisit the one comment about the increased taxes, if I can at this point.
Greg, can you wait till we go to board comment, which is just going to be in a few minutes?
Sure.
We'll take
Yes, I'd just like to revisit that comment.
Yeah, the only other thing I want to make an announcement of, on 9/27, the board did have an executive session to discuss possible litigation.
Mr. Vogt, we do have another comment. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Michelle Richards, Ralpho Township. You can't compare the spring learning by video to SoCo Live. They are two completely different learning settings. In the spring, kids learn via videos for partial days, not full day classes with the teacher at the helm for every subject. My kids are SoCo Live and are thriving. If assessing, you would need to look at a spring very differently than the current structure. You just can't compare.
Do you have anything else, Brian?
Mr. Vogt, at this point, let me just hit refresh one more time. It looks like that is the last comment.
All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Drew Hampton,
Yes.
Josh Hoagland,
No.
Greg Clevon,
Yes.
Brianna Majeski,
Yes.
Josh Majeski,
Yes.
Tony Serafini,
Yes.
Tim Vogt,
No.
Eli Emzel,
Yes.
Cindy Brassington.
Yes.
So we have 7-2 in favor.
All right, at this time, is there any board comment? Greg, we'll take your comment.
I just wanted to revisit the one comment that was made by one of our taxpayers about the increase. They just got an increase in taxes. Yeah, there was an increase in taxes, and it was advertised, or it was noted that it was about a little over 3%. However, maybe there's a lot of people that are listening that weren't aware of the comments that I had made, and Denise verified, these, our business manager, that the tax increase that for the people that own property, their property assessment tax increase was probably no more than $15 to $20 if they compared it to prior year's school tax, which came out probably, I think, in July or early August. So a lot of people make comments about taxes going up. I don't think $15 or $20 is really a substantial amount of money. For some people, it may be, but I said it before, it's going to Burger King and getting 2 Whoppers and a Coke and some fries. So if our children aren't worth that, the increase our students, then I don't really understand that people keep bringing up the fact that tax increases. It's not like it was $300 or $400 or $500 or $50. It was less than $20. Mine was $25. So I just wanted to make that point in case there's people out there that didn't compare last year's school taxes with this year's to see actually what they did go up, and it was very minimal. And that's all I have to say.
All right, is there any other board comment?
I have 2 quick comments. One, just on the taxes, just so everybody understands, we operate mostly on property taxes here for the school district, a small portion of the EIT, but unlike the state with the 3% roughly EIT, if your salary goes up, the state's revenue goes up. Property tax stays the same unless we act to raise it according to inflation. So that's, why you typically see it going up 2 to 3%, just like inflation every year. Not that makes it much better if you're on a very tight budget, but just to understand that a little bit. The second thing, I just want to clarify, I voted no on the early dismissal next week, not because I don't think that the teachers need more planning time. I just feel very strongly, I think the parents have given up a lot, and that's why I'm trying to be very proactive and help lessen the workload on the teachers as opposed to doing the early dismissals. So I just wanted to explain myself.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to add too, I think, going back to the taxes thing, again, I think our goal is to use the CARES Act funding for whatever we can here. So ideally, this shouldn't have much of an impact on the bottom line as it is. And then second, I do just want to say thank you to the teachers for grimming and bearing with all of this, and then for the parents as well, who I know this is a tough spot for just everybody involved, and nothing we do is ideal, but just thank you for toughing it out.
Any other board comment? Brian, do you have any more recognition of the public comments?
Mr. Vogt, I do have another comment. Again, it's from Lynn Robinson, who is a teacher from Montour Township. Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
So again, this is Lynn Robinson, Montour Township. We do not want more money. In a normal year, I stay till 3:30 or 4. This year, I'm staying most nights until 5 or 6 and still have work at home. I do not want more pay. I need more time. I'm afraid for all of us that the stress and extra hours is what will make us sick. Please give us something. At this point, Mr. Vogt, let me hit refresh one more time. I believe I only am, that is the last comment. Yes.
All right, this time the chair is looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Josh, do we have a second? Second by Eli. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
We'll be meeting in executive session following this meeting.
All right. Thank you, everyone.